Kyle here from allmediareviews.blogspot.com. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I appreciate that. Anyone who subscribed recently, I really appreciate that. I'm just gonna do a vinyl update. Made a video earlier today about the Nick Mason Saucerful Secrets show and some other stuff, and mentioned at the end I was gonna go looking for a record that I don't have. Unfortunately, they don't have it. I mean, I'll be complaining. I'm looking for the Warpaint record, Radiate Like This, that came out in May, and not in the store. I did find out, though, that Jenny Lee Lindbergh, Warpaint's bass player, I believe, she put out a new solo album recently. Now, I want to say she put out albums, at least one or two solo albums previously, and I thought they were alright, but it's a common case where the solo work or side project isn't as... It's called Heart Tax. I'll have to check it out. It came out way back in February, long before the... I remember reading about that, actually, but I don't know. I mean, is it how it's done in terms of... It's almost been a year since it came up, and whatever, 8 months, 9 months. I thought she was known as, like, Jenny Lee. Yeah, she's known as Jenny... Well, she's going back and forth. Actually, I had the other one that was right on back in 2015, but 2022's album, Heart Tax, has gotten more of a positive response, so... Actually, the Warpaint people are on a track called Clinique. So, yeah, I'll have to check this out, trying to... The old days, my system was the end of October because of the whole end-of-year release thing, cramming it in and stuff, and barely anything comes out in December. I kind of swapped that and scrapped it the last couple of years. But it's still kind of winding down the year. It's one to try to check out before the end of the year. So, I mean, I had, records? Giant Sky and Mask of the Phantasm, 2 albums that came out last year. Those were the main 2. Even you could say, well, like Squid came out. Yeah, I mean, I didn't check those out until after the year ended, so they weren't on my list. So, but okay, so I got a few records to show. Let me just show the one that I bought that was new. Went to Argata Records a few weeks ago with my wife. Was it last? I think it was last week. It was right after we she's looking for the George Michael Older, and she did find it. Her box set, of course, that came in later, but so they had it, but I didn't find a ton of stuff. Part of it is prices. It's getting frustrating. I get that they need to stay in business, so they're selling things at the prices they are, but I found this. It's just looking through the Rush section, and it's an all-star tribute to Rush, which, yeah, it's not... Basically what this is it's a tribute album. It's a double album, too. It's a red vinyl, I guess. I just opened it. But this is... I looked at the track list. Let me just show that. If I can get it without the glare. If you look at it, and you're a Rush fan or a Dream Theater fan, namely, or anyone that... You ever bought any of the music from Magna Carta in the mid to late 90s, the prog rock stuff, you know this as basically all the songs from the Working Man tribute that Mike Portnoy co-produced, and had all the members of Dream Theater, and had Shadow Gallery, Enchant. I mean, it's got some other big names. Sebastian Bach, obviously, from Skid Row. Some of these are mixed. It has Fate's Warnings, Closer to the Heart, their cover Closer to the Heart. Devin Townsend doing Natural Science. Some people from other bands like Symphony X. Anyway, it was a Billy Sheehan, Jakey Lee, Joey Vera, Stu Hamm, Sean Malone plays on Red Barchetta. It's interesting, the credits are a little more limited, and in fact, actually, that's why they didn't call it Working Man, because the C and D, for the most part, if not none of, are from the Working Man tribute. So it's like a mixture of 2 tribute. But Sebastian Bach's on the Lakeside Park on the side C, so Daniel J., the guitarist from Israel that Jordan Rudess knew. And Sebastian Bach also does Tom Sawyer. So Alex Skolnick plays guitar on Bastille Day. So that's why I didn't get referred to it by name as Working Man, a show of bands, but red vinyl. It's all that music. That was a tribute CD that myself and just a lot of people, a lot of Dream Theater fans, especially prog heads, listen to. Of course, there's the Yes and the Genesis. There's a Jethro Tull and an ELP tribute. I think there was a Jethro Tull one. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. There was a Pink Floyd one. It was just Dark Side of the Moon, which I didn't really understand why they just did that. But that had, it had Enchanted Shadow Gallery and Magellan were all on those. And Kevin Gilbert is on both the Yes and the Genesis ones. Although it's the Genesis, the Yes one, it's the band's called Stanley Snail. He's with Mike Neely, I believe. But if those ever came out on vinyl, this doesn't want to come out. I would definitely snatch them up. And that's what kind of got me curious about this. I know those. I had those. A lot of Rush fans. Being a Rush fan, and that was like the collision of my fandom of Rush and Dream Theater in the '90s. Just they played that thing to death. I had that in my car. I bought the CD, and copied it onto cassette because I didn't have a CD player in my car, and listened to it frequently. And in some ways, like when the Fates Warning was on that, and I was a new Fates Warning fan at that point too, and it kind of got me introduced to some of those bands like Enchant and Shadow Gallery a little more so. Although Enchant's not on this one, but Mike Baker, I believe, from Shadow Gallery, and Brent, some of the members of Shadow Gallery, Enchant's not on, which is really ironic because you think about Enchant and the fact they were on the Pink Floyd one, Moon Revisited, the Genesis and the Yes one. They covered Man of Our Times on the Genesis one, and yes, it was Changes from 90125. But one of the biggest influences on Enchant clearly has always been Rush. So I'm not sure if it was a case where they were doing the other ones and they didn't have time, or I don't know. There's not like a download card in here, I don't think. No. But yeah, I was kind of surprised in the fact that this is, while it's not in name and fully the whole release. I mean, I was trying to look to see. I think one of those had come out on vinyl because again, the Kevin Gilbert stuff would just sort of sell me. Plus those Yes and I got into Yes and Genesis more so by listening to those tribute albums, which is weird, but it's true. and fully admit it. Those Magna Carta tribute CDs. The ELP one, even so, to an extent. But anyway, so I got that. It's called it's an all-star tribute, an all-star tribute to Rush. It's the Working Man, a show of bands tribute album, and then probably another tribute album that I'm not familiar with. I mean, from a copyright standpoint, I'm surprised I don't actually see anything. Mike Varney. Magna Carta, they had to pay Magna Carta some kind of royalties or something to use these recordings, or this is unauthorized. The thing is, around that time also, it's a footnote, Neil Peart was interviewed, and he kind of badmouthed, like he didn't really feel like doing a tribute to their music really made sense in the way that those tributes were done. But there was another tribute album that was titled Red Star, which was all punk bands, death metal. I think it was death metal. I can't remember. It wasn't even close to as good as the one that Portnoy produced, the Working Man one. And it was kind of got misconstrued. People asked Portnoy about that. It's like I don't know if he understood. If he was, when he was interviewed, asked that question. It was a site called Metal. It was a site that was trying to get reactions. It was one of those weird, stupid, almost fictional, like taken out of context type of websites in the early 2000s. Yeah, I know that Portnoy thought Neil hated it, and I think later realized he was talking about a different tribute album. But I don't think this is the Red Star one, though. I think this is a different one. Because the Red Star, again, this has Kip Winger and Sebastian Bach. I think this was done a little later, and I don't know, I have to track it down. Yeah, it's Cleopatra. All right, that's the label. Because it has the Magna Carta on this other one, the second record, C and D, I don't know if these tributes are any good. It's got some decent people on it, but that doesn't necessarily mean. Randy Jackson did the lead sing vocals on Farewell to Kings. I don't think that's the Randy Jackson that people know. Either of them, the one from the Jackson 5 or the guy that's from American Idol and was a Name That Tune, which that show was kind of jumped. I don't think it jumped the chart, but we stopped watching it the second season. This past summer, we didn't really watch it. Anyway, so then I went to what turned out was like seeing Signs in My Neighborhood. They have record shows, of course, periodically in the Twin Cities, and I used to go to them here and there, more looking for bootleg CDs and VHS and DVDs. I wasn't really collecting vinyl at that point, but ever since I started collecting more vinyl, I've gone to a few of them, but it's been a number of years. I don't go to them as often, and they don't hold them quite as often. They still do hold them. Anyway, some people, they held one, but they didn't actually get to hold it. Like, they scheduled it, and so the people that normally were scheduled to be at one of the record shows that was scheduled in Minneapolis that got canceled, so I had to hold a record sale in their, like, driveway in their backyard. So we just literally driving by, seeing the signs one day, and then we went back the next day, and it was still there. We couldn't find the house, but the second day, we were supposed to actually go to, what was it? We had a turkey dinner we had to get, but during the day at this church, but we delayed that by going to this record sale, and everything was half off, so I picked up 3 records. The first one, I mean, a lot of the stuff was used stuff that, yeah, I mean, they had some prog stuff, but, 70s and some 80s. Wasn't that rare, but, occasionally we saw some stuff, and I wasn't looking to spend a lot of money either. But I did find, like, I love Joe Jackson. I've become sort of revering Joe Jackson's song Steppin' Out, and he also produced that song from the woman who did Tom's Diner, that Jake Root has played. She has a number of other songs. Suzanne Vega. Suzanne Vega has another song. This is what I'm just saying. This is Joe Jackson. I think it's maybe his first album, but it's a 10-inch. That was what really was sold, and I'm thinking how rare this actually might be. Suzanne Vega has a song that that Jake Root played on his show, a video like a year and a half ago that I really like. She has a song called Luca, which is kind of a sad story if I recall, but it's called, I'd like to find it if I could find it. It was in the late 80s, I think. Left of Center, I think? Yeah, it's the B-side. I think that's it. Yes, it was the B-side for Tom's Diner. Tom's Diner itself, I'm not crazy. I was always bugged by that song. That was her most well-known song, I think. But Left of Center I like, and Joe Jackson, I think he co-wrote this? Yeah, so anyway, I mean, I know that the song, Is She Really Going Out With Him? I think that's on this, because this is the album Look Sharp, as maybe I mentioned or maybe I didn't mention. I'm looking for it. I think it might be his first album, actually. British singer-songwriter. I mean, Is She Really Going Out With Him? Always, to me, I knew that song always sounded like Elvis Costello. And I like Elvis Costello. I'm not like, yeah, Look Sharp is his debut album that came out in 79. But I thought that, yeah, it's the last track on the first record. But yeah, the big, I mean, maybe it's significant in some other ways. It's his debut album, but it's what pressing this is. But this is a 10-inch. I have literally probably less than 10, maybe less than 5 10-inch. I have the Velveteen album that's so damn good. Elysium on 10-inch. I have some EPs that are 10-inch, like the Self EP, the last EP, are pretty odd, pretty nice. The last Self EP with Hey Hipster, that's so damn good that I love. That's a 10-inch. I have a few 10-inches, but they're hard to find. They don't issue 10-inch albums very often anymore, and that's why I figured, even though this is clearly a record that's been, I'll worry about this later. This is a record clearly that was played, and, I got it used, but it was, $3. The price was half off. A double 10-inch. you can see. It's in good shape, too, for the most part. So, yeah, Look Sharp, the Joe Jackson. I mean, I'd like, and maybe someday I'll get more like Billy Joel or something like that. Joe Jackson, with Stepping Out, to me, is just, it's a brilliant tune. And it shows kind of it's a songwriter who just was basically hitting all cylinders. Yeah, this is just, fortunately, this doesn't go in very well. But anyway, yeah, this is an A&M pressing. I don't know. I'm not sure how rare this is. I'd almost be curious to look on Discogs. Like there's a site that values vinyl, but so the other 2 records I found there that day, one of them was Ultravox. Another find I can trace mainly from Jake Rude, because he played their album Vienna, which I bought the record store day reissue. I'd like to get that Steven Wilson remix, but this, I believe, was released around, this might be an EP. It's called Passing Strangers. Yeah. So this may be some stuff from that. It's some live stuff, I guess. You can see the track list on the corner there, if you can see it and capture that. Ultravox is Passing Strangers, and Ultravox Vienna, I believe, is their debut album, like Look Sharp from Joe Jackson. And like Joe Jackson, I think they're British. I don't know, again, like, I don't maybe always follow up and invest tons of time with some of these artists when I discover an album or a song or two that I really liked by them, like I should. Yeah, they're considered new wave, but no, this wasn't Vienna wasn't their debut album. I'm wrong about that. It was like their 3rd or 4th album. But I think it's their most well-known. It is. This, though, specifically Passing Strangers, is an EP, but is Passing Strangers, it is a tune from Vienna. I've listened to Vienna a few times in the last couple of years, but I don't know the track list by heart. The title track is amazing, though, and the whole record's really good, but so I'm not sure if this is a single. Maybe this is a single. Yeah, that's what this actually is. It's got 4 tracks. Even that's a 12-inch. It's a 12-inch single. And it's, as you can see, it's got the sticker made in the UK, so it's a UK pressing. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's part of that one album I really like from them at this point. So, in the third, and that was just a few dollars, so it was a single, but, you know. Third record is not a record that's that hard to find, and I'm like 98% certain I don't have it. That's the problem with my collection not being fully organized. You like have it on Discogs, or have a list I can bring with me anytime I look for albums. But this is the first album by Return to Forever, and Kitty Cat, one of my kitty cats just came in. She's the one who comes in more often than the other ones, Mocha. But, you want to say hello? Mm-hmm. She's not really thrilled probably about the lawnmower outside. Oh, your claws. Yeah? You don't like the lawnmower, do you? But you're liking the album, the used album discussion, or the vinyl update, Moki? She just wants food. Ah, and your claws are all over my shirt. This is the first album with El Di Meola. I think he was like 19. Where Have I Known You Before? Romantic Warrior is the one, obviously, that I first was introduced to and got to know them and have that. And I have Hymn of the Seventh Galaxy, I believe, but that's not with El Di Meola. That's with Bill Connors, I believe. Yeah, this is the album I think that preceded Romantic Warrior, which is their most sort of renowned, famous record. Although the more I hear about people that are really into fusion and Return to Forever and jazz, it's not necessarily, even prog folks don't necessarily say, well, it's definitely their best record, even though it's their most sort of signature and well-known record, Romantic Warrior. In fact, a coworker of my wife's wants me to do a video just on my fusion background, jazz fusion, which I know my share of it, but at the same time, I'm not like obsessed with it, and I don't know everything. I just know some of the big 3, you know, Return to Forever, Mahavishnu Orchestra, Weather Report. Then you have all these other sorts, these solo artists like Pat Metheny, and then El Di Meola. There's a lot of other ones in there, like Herbie Hancock. He's got a couple, specifically Headhunters. So, I mean, I don't know how great of a video it might be, but it might be worth trying to do. I'd have to wrangle all my at least enough of them. I just do like a top 10 albums, maybe. Maybe that would be the easiest thing, but I would hate to repeat artists. That's the other thing I hate doing when I do this, and especially with fusion and jazz, so many artists worked with each other, went in and out. I mean, and what constitutes jazz fusion, like Brand X and the Dixie Dregs, and Soft Machine fusion, jazz. I mean, anyway. But yeah, this is a record that I've listened to, but not nearly as often as I probably should. It's got Vulcan Worlds on it. That's probably the most well known that Chick would play live, and they would play live. The title track, it's only a minute. Came out in '74, and I don't know if this is a first pressing. It might not be, but this is Polydor. So anyway, yeah, I mean, it's definitely one to have. And the fact, again, you look at Al, he's got the beard. The other guys aren't that old, but Lenny White and Stanley Clarke and Chick, but it's oh, and interesting, it's got like a whole write-up from Neville Potter. I don't know if it's like there are vocals on this, or that's just a write-up. Where they got the title? Where have I known you before? Where did we play among the galaxies bright? L. Ron Hubbard. That I'm not crazy of, but in fairness, I don't know how long he probably was, but yeah, Chick was a member of the church, anyway, because it was known as actually Return for featuring Chick. Of course, Chick had some that was under his name, Chick Corea's Return. It's always Chick was sort of the captain or the head of the group, but of course, rest in peace, Chick, even though, that part of it. But, yeah, it's good to have, so. Like I said, I wanted to get Warpaint and the stuff that's coming out. I think I pre-ordered. I got all this stuff that I pre-ordered that hasn't come in. The Deer Hunter album that's a few months old now, and the upcoming album from Major Parkinson, I believe, and this Dredge thing I'm going to Deer Hunter. And then this that's the other thing I forgot to mention. I'm going to be getting the Jellyfish, which came out, like the ad for it was in June, and I remember Lorenzo from Alt Pro Core, I think, tagged me on Twitter, but I didn't pre-order it. It's like 6 or 7. It's a Jellyfish box set, colored vinyl box set that was issued, I believe, just in Europe, or at least the European sites are selling it, but it's sold out. It's limited pressing. They issued it. They did another pressing of just black, which I wasn't really that interested in, but I found on the Jellyfish group on Facebook a guy who runs a record store in the UK that basically said if just to make sure he sells them, offer them to some people in the group that didn't get them, and I chimed in. I contacted him, gave him sent him the stuff he needs, and hopefully I'll be getting that within the next few weeks. It's really a cool looking box set. I mean, Jellyfish seems like seem to be milking, because there's just so much Jellyfish for a band that only it's like Jeff Buckley. The band released only 2 albums. But it comes with 3D glasses and a book, and it reminds me a little bit of the Color Spectrum vinyl. That those were 10 inches actually, but I think these are all 7 inches. It's like all their singles. It's like singles and EPs. So it should be neat. If at the point that I get it, I'll definitely be showing it. So anyway, thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, and we'll see you next time.